Our story begins in ancient Israel, during a time when the people had lost their way. The Israelites had turned from God, and because of that they found themselves under the oppressive rule of the Midianites, a fierce, powerful enemy who ravaged their land. For 7 long years the Midianites raided their villages, stole their crops and left them with nothing. The Israelites were terrified and hid in caves and mountains just to survive. But when their suffering became too much, they cried out to God for help. And as always, God listened. That's where Gideon comes in. Gideon wasn't a warrior, he wasn't a leader, he was just an ordinary man trying to survive. One day, as he worked in secret to hide his grain from the Midianites, an angel of the Lord appeared to him. The angel greeted him, saying, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." But Gideon didn't feel like a mighty warrior. He felt small, insignificant. So he asked the angel a question that might sound familiar to many of us. If the Lord is with us, why has all this happened? Where are the miracles we've heard about? Why hasn't God rescued us? The angel didn't answer those questions directly. Instead, he gave Gideon a mission. Go in the strength you have. Save Israel from Midian. I am sending you. Now Gideon wasn't exactly eager to jump into action. He reminded the angel that he came from the weakest clan in his tribe and was the least important member of his family. But the angel reassured him. I will be with you. You'll strike down the Midianites as if they were one man. Even with this promise, Gideon wanted to be sure, so he asked God for a sign, and God, in his patience, gave him one. Fire consumed an offering Gideon prepared, and he knew this was real. Gideon was ready to answer the call. Gideon sent out a call to arms, and 32,000 men showed up to fight the Midianites. It was an impressive number, but compared to the Midianite army, which was like a swarm of locusts, it still wasn't enough. Or so Gideon thought. But God had a very different plan. He told Gideon something surprising. You have too many men. If you win with this many soldiers, Israel will think they did it on their own. Send home anyone who is afraid. Gideon obeyed, and 22,000 men went home, leaving only 10,000. It was a small army now, but God wasn't done yet. He said, "There are still too many men. Take them to the water, and I will test them for you." At the water, God told Gideon to keep only the 300 men who drank by bringing the water to their mouths with their hands. These men were alert, ready for action even while drinking. Everyone else was sent home. Now Gideon had just 300 men to face an enemy that seemed impossible to defeat. But Gideon trusted God. He didn't rely on numbers or strength, only faith. That night, God gave Gideon one more sign to strengthen his faith. As Gideon crept into the enemy camp, he overheard a Midianite soldier sharing a dream. "I had a dream. A loaf of barley bread rolled into the camp and knocked over a tent." Another soldier replied, "That dream can only mean one thing. God has given Gideon victory over Midian." When Gideon heard this, he was filled with confidence. He rushed back to his camp and prepared his men for the most unconventional battle plan anyone had ever seen. Gideon gave each man a trumpet, a clay jar, and a torch. No swords, no shields, just these 3 things. They divided into 3 groups and surrounded the Midianite camp under the cover of darkness. At Gideon's signal, the men blew their trumpets, smashed their jars, and shouted at the top of their lungs, "For the Lord and for Gideon!" The Midianites woke up in a frenzy. They were so terrified and confused that they turned on each other with their swords. Those who survived fled into the night. Gideon's 300 men didn't even have to fight. God had delivered Israel. Gideon's victory wasn't about numbers or strategy. It was about faith, faith in a God who can do the impossible. This story reminds us that even when the odds seem against us, God can use the smallest, most unlikely things to bring about great victories. So the next time you feel small, outnumbered, or overwhelmed, remember Gideon and his 300 men. With God on your side, no obstacle is too big.